So what's your...
Where's the lambda come in, like, specifically?
Lambda just means language here. That's the symbolic, the symbol
Okay.
he's using for language. Yeah, it's probably worth saying for the recording, before you try to do anything with Meditation 3, read the little appendix to Meditation 3. On
Technical note, the conversion.
technical
He
note.
specifically, like, right after that, he's like, if you don't know set theory, read that.
Yeah, and you really do need to read it, even if you know set theory, just to make sure that you're using the same conventions he is.
Okay.
But yeah, by lambda, we mean language. That's
Okay.
all we mean by that.
Well, and additionally, it can also mean formula,
Right.
which means the same thing. It's a way of picking out or determining a set.
Right.
So for those of you who
Properties.
remember, yeah,
Properties.
properties, which then in turn
Right.
picks out a set, right?
Right.
So for those of you who remember your old high school days, right, you would have y equals x plus 1, but then you would also have the f of x
Right.
equals y plus 1.
Wow.
F of x, right, a function, a formula, a language, a lambda a,
Yeah.
could then become, you know,
Yeah.
a plus 1,
Yeah.
or what have you.
So that's what we've got in mind with lambda.
Alright.
Which is going to be really, really important when we get to the axiom of separation here.
Okay, thanks.
So, which he starts to turn toward on page 44. First, on page 44, he gets the first two of three crucial characteristics of the Zermelo-Frankel system. The Zermelo and Frankel were two mathematicians who more or less finally fixed set theory, right? After Russell brought it to fruition. There are some other major things that happen as well, so that we end up with 9 axioms, which we'll deal with in meditation 5, isn't it? Yeah. We'll deal with 6 of them there, but the other 3 will come along the way. But yeah, so Zermelo and Frankel more or less finish off the set theoretical foundation, we'll say. And so what he's bringing out here are these major characteristics. So the first 2 are on page 44. The first one is that there is only one relation in set theory, namely belonging, or the symbol element, right? The element symbol. X is an element of this set S. So that is the only relation we're dealing with, and it's nothing more than a relation. That's all clear, I hope. And that's the only one. So that when we start dealing with inclusion, for example, inclusion is actually formulable out of belonging. You can actually construct inclusion and so forth. This is the only relation we're dealing with in set theory. One thing is an element of another.
And it's also worth noting that this flies in this is a foundational formulation of set theory. There are numerous, just like Euclidean geometry, there are numerous formulations of set theory.
Right.
And many of the most easily practicable versions of set theory also include classes.
Right.
And in addition can include property. So if it seems as though he's being excessive to say, and it's only this, the reason why is because there are a whole, if you'll pardon the term, set of set theories that use different axioms, different conventions, different relations.
That's right.
Anything specific that Zermelo-Frankel, this is...
So this is the ZF system.
Okay, and then what axiom is that? Is that
This is not an axiom, right?
it's just simply, that's what set theory deals with? Is that like all set theories, or is it?
Yeah. This itself is guaranteed by several of the basic axioms.
Okay.
But yeah, that's elements or belonging is in every system of set theory,
Right.
but there are additional relations that are not derivable from the element in other set theories.
Okay.
For example, classes, local classes, global classes.
Right.
Those are not, depending on the version of set theory, are not necessarily derivable from the element.
Okay.
They just make things easier, I guess, or?
Yeah, they make things easier.
Yeah. Allow you to do other things.
Yeah.
But
ZF only has belonging.
this is the only relation. Everything else, every other relation it ends up with is constructible from this relational entity. And I think the reason Badiou is so interested in that is, right, that this streamlines ontology. Ontology is not going to be introducing any problems of, and you would end up with all kinds of problems given what Badiou wants to do. The second major characteristic, he says, how did I summarize it here? Yeah, flatness of the plane of variables. If we're dealing with variables, again, we talked about this before, Cantor wants to talk about sets versus elements in some sense, right? And so a major characteristic of the ZF system is that's gone. Everything it's a completely flattened ontology here. Nothing is privileged in any guaranteed sense. So that if X is an element of S, it's not that X is somehow some sort of atomic element, or that S is some sort of guaranteed set. X itself is also a set of sets of sets of sets, and so on, right?
Right, and also, I believe this is extension, also S could be an element of X.
Right.
And in fact, if all the elements of X are all the elements of S,
Replacement.
right, they're the same set. So I mean, this just adding guarantees that sort of, as the term used, flatness, ontological flatness.
So then what he goes on to do with the rest of this meditation is to get the axiom of separation on the table and to give us its importance. And that's where we want to finish off with this meditation. So this is the first of the 9 axioms of set theory that we're going to deal with in Badiou's book. We'll get 5 more in the next, or I guess the meditation 5, not in the next meditation. And then the other 3 will come here and there through the rest of the book. And he spends a great deal of time here with separation for very important reasons. The easiest way to handle this is to compare these two mappings. If you look at the bottom of page 45, we've got one of them. There exists a beta. I'm just going to use B, how's that? There exists a B such that for all A, lambda of A implies A is an element of B. We're all up on the terminal or the symbolism, right?
What's the upside down
It's
Universal quantifier.
All.
For all A.
Think
A? Yeah, we didn't do the universal quantifier that way.
Well, do you? Oh, okay.
Oh,
We just did it as a single variable.
oh yeah, so that's another way to do it. This is the Fregean notation.
Helpful.
So
Thank you.
yeah, for all A there exists a B. So this is Frege's formulation.
Do you have the actual book text or not?
No.
He borrowed mine last time.
Okay, yeah. It's this section. He explains exactly.
Also, if you send me an email, I can send it to you as a PDF.
Or I saw a copy of Borders. So.
Anyway. Okay, so then the other one here, right, for all A, there exists a B such that for all, I'll just use G instead of gamma. G is an element of A and lambda of G implies G is an element of B. Okay, so what he's doing here to try to really force the importance of the difference here between Frege's optimism and what we end up with after Russell in the full, the completion, if you will, of the basics of set theory, is this gap, and this allows us to think about the axiom of separation. What we have going on here, right, is the existence of a B is presupposed first and foremost. Notice the B here just appears there. It's a given, right? There exists a B. Here we've got for all A, and that A is part of the language, of a formula, and some kind of function, and so forth. So that if something is said, that implies that something is part of some given existent set. That's what's going on in Frege. Did that make sense? Just that one. Whereas in Cermello and Frankel, it's interesting what's going on here, right? So there exists a B here, but notice that the B is going to be separated out, as we'll see. So for all G, G is an element of alpha, or of A, sorry. And there's some sort of formula regarding G, this element here. There's some kind of function there. That implies that G is an element of this other set. The point being that here, language can actually bring something into existence. If language says something about A, then A is in existence in some set B that's also presupposed in existence. We can say that this B comes into existence simply because language speaks, and with A as one of its elements.
Or just if you anything you say must exist.
Right.
If you say it, then it exists.
So we can say a squared circle, then
Yeah.
it implies that a squared circle exists.
Right.
Okay.
Whereas here, what we've got going on is that if you've got G as an element of A, and I should have done that back. Okay. So if you've got G as an element of A, and you say something about G, all that implies is that G is an element of some other separable set. So the idea of the axiom of separation here is that all language can do is impose a split on things. It can't actually create anything. Here language has a creative function. Here it has a separative function. Please.
That's all I'm looking at for A, and I'm sort of noticing, like, if I'm reading that correctly, right, language A implies that A is a subset of B. Does that imply that A is also a subset of A? Implies, in that sense, or no?
No.
Okay, never mind, I'm reading that totally wrong.